at the end of the day, I don't think there's a reason not to take them out. You know, I read a stat that there was 50,000 hits in a year, and we're talking about 50 maybe, 50 headshots. And to take those out, the game's not going to change. I mean, as players, we're professionals, and the odd time maybe there's accidental contact, but for the most part, we can control what goes on out there. And for sure, it's a fast game, but we've got to be responsible too. And a guy's got to be responsible with his stick. Why shouldn't he be responsible with the rest of his body when he's going to hit someone? So, whether it's accidental or not accidental, you got to be responsible out there. And like I said, at the end of the day, it could do a lot more good than what it's going to take away from the game, or possibly take away from the game, because it's great, it's fast, and it's as physical as probably it's ever been, and it's just going to get better. But we've got to kind of adjust with things too, and I think it's an important thing to really look at.
This question's for Dr. Carrick and Dr. Collins. I don't know how familiar you are with the other concussion cases in the league, like Eric Lindros and Primo and Mark Savard and so forth. But is it very likely that those came to a bad end because they came back too soon? How familiar are you with those cases, and your opinion on their end?
I'm not very familiar. It's something that every case is individualized and different. We know that clearly an athlete who's not fully recovered has an increased risk of recidivism and worsened outcome. I mean, it's medical fact with this injury. And we're going to avoid that in this situation. We're going to do the right things. I'm not familiar enough with those cases individually to fully understand the complexities and where they were at when they went back to play.
I haven't examined either of those people, and really you can't comment on the degree of such an injury without a hands-on physical examination.
Sid, you weren't listed as injured going into the Tampa game or even the Montreal game. Did you feel an obligation to try to tough through anything initially and then realize that wasn't going to happen, or did it all really just hit you in Montreal? And do you have any emotion regarding coming back without setting a timetable on it, or any expectations or hopes, aspirations?
Well, I think as far as the injury, a lot of things were felt to come from my neck. I had pretty bad whiplash, and that's not uncommon. I mean, you get pretty sore necks sometimes when you get hit, and different things happen. But that was the thought process. And like Dr. Collins said, these are tough to gauge, and we see it so often. So that's why I think it's important to be educated about it. But yeah, I mean, I think I was feeling a little bit sore in my neck, but I didn't think anything of it. And obviously after the Tampa game, was feeling some symptoms, and at that point I came back here and got evaluated.
Sid, I know there's no timeline, but do you think that it is more likely or more unlikely that you'll play in the upcoming season?
Likely.
It's likely you'll play.
Yes.
For both doctors, please. Assuming that the progress is substantial and Sid gets back to a place where he can play, will there come a point where there will be no evidence that an injury ever occurred? And in conjunction with that, will he be more susceptible to further head injury, even though he's recovered from this one?
To answer your first question, yes, there will be no evidence that this injury is there anymore, but we wouldn't put him back to play. The brain wants to recover from this. It will recover over time, and with the right therapies. It was a more significant event, but we'll get there. We're getting there. He's made tremendous progress. In the second part of your question is our research and many others in this field, and we've come a long way with research, understands that if you have full recovery, the outcomes are far less in terms of recidivism and problems reoccurring. And I expect that to occur in this case. I'm very optimistic that we'll see Sid have a very long, fruitful NHL career.
Thank you.
I'd add something to that. I think that we've got some markers now that we didn't have before on Sid Crosby and his brain function, and our goal is to make his brain function better than it has been. So hopefully he'll have a better functioning nervous system than he had before, and certainly we don't expect any sort of sequelae.
And this is just one thing from the team standpoint. From talking to the doctors and dealing with Sid all summer on this is, you know, the 80-90% we hear about, he will not return to play until he's 100%. Here's a player that is, over my 5 years with him, has played at less than 80% with injuries, as many athletes do, but there is no 90% returning from a concussion. So just to be clear when the team standpoint is here, and Sid is aware of that and all on the same page, which is, you know, been beneficial for all of us through this whole process.
Teddy Katz in the back from the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. First question for you, Sidney. What symptoms are you facing right now at this point, and where are you in terms of your workouts? And for Dr. Collins, because this is such a difficult injury to gauge, how can you guarantee that Sidney will make a recovery, a full recovery to play again, when it is such a hard thing to gauge down the road as well?
You know what, as far as symptoms go, you know, I'm just dealing with headaches right now, you know, a little bit of headaches, and trust me, that's a long ways from where I was in January. So, and even I can answer a bit of your question for Dr. Collins too, as far as that's, I mean, when you see that type of progression, for me personally, I'm sure you can comment on it, but you know, when you go through all those things and you're able to see how you've progressed and all those different symptoms and how they're starting to go away, and you know, seems pretty good. So that's a long ways, and you know, I can't speak for him, but I think for me personally, I've seen that.
I agree. If you knew where we were and where we are now, it's pretty evident this tremendous progress. And it's mainly, to answer your question, is experience. I see 4,000 cases a year of this injury, and put a lot of athletes back to play and have very good outcomes from it, and I expect no different here.
Thank you. Hey, Sid. I'm Kathy Gooley from Maclean's Magazine. We've heard the thorough and even innovative treatments you've been getting from Dr. Collins and Dr. Carrick. Eric Lindros came up earlier. I spoke with him at length about the consequence of his concussion and the mental and the emotional toll that it took on him years and years after he retired. He talked very candidly about how psychotherapy was a big part of his treatment and recovery. Can you talk to us a little bit about whether that's something that you're incorporating into your recovery, and maybe describe sort of the mental or emotional toll of what you're going through?
Yeah, I mean, the whole process is basically that. It takes its toll, and at this point, like I said, it's much better. I feel a lot better, and there's no doubt that that's part of it. That's part of the challenge, part of the battle. But I haven't really talked to anyone in particular, but I've been really lucky to have a good support system around me, my family, and the team, you know, the group of doctors, my agency, everybody has been unbelievable. And it's important when you're going through anything in life, you know, whether it's this or anything else, to have that, and I've been lucky enough to have that. So that's a big key in anything, and getting better, and that's certainly, I think, been a big factor for me.
Ray and Sidney, given the uncertainty about going forward, from the aspect of the impact on the team, both he's your captain in addition to, you know, to being your best player. What are your options from that standpoint of anything roster-wise, what you could and couldn't consider given the uncertainty? And Sid, as the captain, how does this impact directly that role as being a leader on this team when you can't be around the team?
You know, I think you can lead in a lot of different ways, and there's sometimes you're playing bad, but you're still expected to be a captain. So I think you can show leadership by the way you're looking at a lot of different things, whether it's being there for other guys, whether it's the way you handle yourself and handle the situation. You know, there were days where, you know, I'd come to the rink and I didn't feel great, but I didn't want to sit there and mope around and feel sorry for myself. I had to be there and be supportive and be optimistic and positive. So that's a day-to-day thing, and that doesn't change. And it'd be easy to change that if you're playing bad, or if things aren't going well, but that's part of being a captain, and I understand that responsibility. So I feel like I can still show leadership and be there for each and every one, the same way as if, this didn't happen.
Yeah, from the just from the team standpoint, there's no replacing Sidney Crosby, as we know. We look forward to Evgeny Malkin's healthy return, Jordan Stahl, a healthy training camp. Going back to last year with Sidney, he's the captain of our hockey team. Even after his injury, he was a go-to guy for me in terms of getting his feedback, no differently than any other year in terms of the team. That's a general manager-captain relationship, I think, that you have to have. He's, as we know, during the stretch run in the playoffs, he helped the coaching staff and was in the press box helping out in that respect, but he's definitely a better player than coach, so we're looking forward to having him back. And as I've said before, he will be worth the wait. He won't be rushed, but as we sit here today, we're very pleased with his progress, and we thank everybody for attending.